see that I think over the next decade there's going to be quite a tremendous amount of instability within countries, and we're seeing tremendous amounts of money being printed, and perhaps not in the US, but in many other countries, that this destabilization could cause people to try to move their money towards or into assets that'll hold its value quite well. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, perhaps other coins, and I can see governments trying to crack down on that. And if they're cracking down on it, then people will be like, well, this is definitely what I need to be doing. And I see this playing out over the next 10 years. And something that I'm even more concerned about is there are these privacy coins. There are ways in which you can send money or receive money that are untrackable, at least to my knowledge. And I'm a big fan of government and of taxes because they provide for things. They help. There's healthcare, there's infrastructure, there's just the ways in which we're having this conversation. I didn't lay down the fiber. Someone, the government probably did. So I'm concerned about how these technologies could enable people to just avoid taxes, and I'm unsure as to where that income could come from to really pay for.
Yes,
these public goods.
Concerns. I think these are real concerns, but people have been avoiding taxes for. This isn't a new thing. So tax avoidance or tax minimization is something that everyone does to the extent that they can get away with that. I think we've got some new tools now for tax avoidance and tax minimization. The traditional way used to be you just move your assets offshore. You move them into tax havens. And again, I'm a big fan of tax havens. I like the fact that they exist because what they do is that they discipline bad behavior by governments. Governments can only engage in predatory behavior up to the extent of the costs of their citizens fleeing to tax havens and so on. So I think we've got the same type of situation here. So my perhaps Pollyanna-ish view on this is that I don't see this as a fundamental problem because I think it improves the quality of government. People aren't going to go completely dark. There are costs to doing that as well. There are significant costs if you try and, you can probably hide all your assets if you put enough effort into it. But there's a whole bunch of things you won't be able to do if you do that. The fact that you might have to live for 6 months of your life 6 months every year in the Cayman Islands is just a tiny fraction of the inconvenience you're going to experience in this space. So I think that there are countervailing forces that limit the extent to which that extends out. But in that sense, this notion of exit, this notion of people being we've now got new options to exit the system, means that on some margins people will exit. That's not good. But we want to look at the reason why they're exiting. What did they feel they weren't getting from society that enabled them to feel that just leaving was a better option? So to that extent, I like the idea of cryptocurrencies disciplining money by meaning that the existence of an alternative, stable money that is far less resistant to inflation just means that governments can't get away with inflating as much. I think net that's a good thing. And again, that's always we've always had that exit option in gold. If you were worried about government ruining their currency, you could always just hold gold. And gold, there's always been exit options like that. It's just they've always been a bit inconvenient. You can't pay easily with gold. You've got to worry about someone stealing it, and where do you even buy it from? So now we've got digital gold. So more people now have that exit option.
I hadn't really thought about that. So that really makes things, I guess, makes me a bit more optimistic in a way, because I was quite concerned about that. But you've given me a reason, to I wouldn't say put my fears aside, but just to quell them just a little bit.
Just to reiterate that, what my point there is that this is an example of competition, and the thing about competition is it not only potentially provides an incentive, it disciplines. It disciplines bad behavior if you've got a competitor. So the thing about being a monopolist is I can raise prices because you can't stop me, because there's no one competing with me to discipline my bad behavior. And the thing about governments is that they can be predatory. They can take your stuff, they can, and a lot of retail politics is really about finding a large group that wants a small group to be punished for something and making that transfer. So these are precisely the ones that we're looking for the exit option. So it disciplines populist politics, and populist politics is often some of the worst types of politics where people don't have a viable exit option. So again, from a long-term perspective, societies that have these kinds of exit options do tend to be healthy democracies, healthy, well-functioning democracies that don't tend to completely collapse. So I'm more worried about the absence of an ability to exit rather than